Let's talk about a story that is truly unbelievable. It's about a teenager named Kara Robinson, whose abduction was designed to end in the worst way imaginable. But instead, her incredible presence of mind not only saved her own life, it completely unraveled the dark, secret world of a serial killer and brought justice to 3 other families who had been waiting for years.
And this quote from Kara herself, this is the key to everything. This wasn't just a thought of, I hope I survive. No, this was an act of defiance. It was a conscious decision to take back control in a situation where she had absolutely none. And we're about to unpack exactly how she pulled it off.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts on what was a completely normal, ordinary summer day in South Carolina, June 24th, 2002. And it's that total normalcy, that makes what happened next so unbelievably shocking. At the center of it all is Kara. And you have to remember, she was just 15 years old, a kid. She was at her friend's house, doing the most normal thing you can imagine, watering plants in the front yard. Just a typical summer afternoon, a moment of total innocence, right before her entire world was flipped upside down. And then, just like that, everything changed. A man, Richard Avenitz, pulls up in his car. And he uses this simple, disarming trick, pretending he's just handing out pamphlets. But then he pulls out a gun, and he forces her into a large plastic storage bin that he has in his car. This happened in broad daylight, with a speed and efficiency that is just terrifying to think about. This was the beginning of 18 hours of absolute terror. But here is what's so critical to understand. Even in those first moments of sheer horror, her mind was working. We're not just going to focus on the terrifying parts, but on the incredible mental strength she showed as she started collecting clues, turning her prison into a puzzle that she knew she had to solve. For 18 hours, she was his captive in his apartment. Can you imagine the fear? But through it all, she never, ever lost sight of her one goal: escape. Every single minute of those 18 hours, she was processing, observing, and planning her way out. And this is where you see her genius for survival just shine through. This wasn't random. She was methodically building a case inside her own head. She spotted his full name on a prescription bottle. She saw magnets on the fridge with his doctor's info. She memorized the serial number on the very bin he'd put her in. She was creating a mental evidence file for the police. So you have to ask yourself, right? How does a 15-year-old find that kind of clarity under that kind of extreme stress? Well, this gets into the real psychology of her escape, the mental tools she used to not only stay alive, but to stay in command of her own thoughts. You can really break her whole approach down into a clear 4-step strategy. It's brilliant. First, she decided follow the rules. That'll keep him calm, de-escalate things. Second, gather information, which we just saw. Third, and this is key, wait for him to get comfortable, for that one moment of complacency. And then finally, step 4, escape. It was a masterclass in logic and fear management. And it's so important to get this. Her calm compliance, it wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a highly sophisticated survival tool. We all know about fight, flight, or freeze, right? Well, there's a 4th one, appease. Instead of fighting back, which would have been deadly, she instinctively worked to calm him down, building a false sense of security, all while she was plotting her escape. And that strategy, well, it leads us right to the escape. The second she broke free, she transformed. She went from being a captive to being the catalyst for a massive manhunt that would finally bring this predator's reign of terror to an end. The moment of complacency she was waiting for finally came when Avenitz fell asleep. That was her chance. She was careful, she was quiet, she worked her way out of her restraints, unlocked the front door, and she just ran. She kept running and running until she found help and was taken straight to the sheriff's office. And remember all that information she memorized? Well, it paid off spectacularly. Her memory was so precise, it was like she gave the police a GPS pin to his exact apartment. Now, by the time they got there, he was gone. But it didn't matter. They had a crime scene, and thanks to Kara, they knew exactly who they were looking for. The manhunt was on, and it ended just 3 days later down in Florida. When police finally cornered him, Avenitz took his own life. But not before making a chilling phone call to his sister, confessing that he'd committed more crimes than he can remember. But the story doesn't stop there. Not even close. Kara's escape created this massive ripple effect. The evidence found in that apartment, the one she led police to, was about to uncover the hidden, bloody trail of a serial killer.
Inside that apartment, what the police found was horrifying. It directly linked Ivanov to 3 cold cases from Virginia back in the late 90s, the unsolved murders of Sofia Silva and 2 sisters, Kristen and Catherine Lisk. These were cases that had haunted their families for years.
Let that sink in. Because of Kara, 3 unsolved murders were finally solved. Her fight for her own life brought long-awaited answers and closure to 3 other families. The impact of her bravery is it's immeasurable.
And when you look at this timeline, you see the horrifying scope of his crimes, stretching back more than a decade. Kara's escape didn't just save her own life, it put a definitive end to a killing spree that could have gone on for years more.
But Kara's story continues, long after her escape. In the years since, she has been completely focused on rewriting the narrative of what it means to be a survivor. And she's become an incredibly powerful advocate for others.
You know, her own experience just completely challenged the way we often see victims in the media. She didn't have the constant nightmares or anxiety attacks you see on TV. Her initial response was, "I was fine." She just wanted to be normal again, and she refused to let this one horrific event define her entire life. It's such a powerful reminder that there is no one right way to process trauma.
And she has transformed that harrowing experience into an amazing mission. She actually went into law enforcement herself for a time, working with kids. Now, she's a public speaker and hosts a podcast, and she uses her own incredible story to empower other survivors and to educate all of us. So we're left with this question: how does a survivor become a hero? I think Kara Robinson Chamberlain's story gives us a pretty powerful answer. It's not just about escaping. It's about using your mind as a weapon, using your voice as a tool for change, and using your life as a testament to the incredible, unbreakable power of the human spirit.